Guess what? Sunday Sanctuary is produced by a non-profit, which makes perfect sense, right? And it's also quite fun because you never know where the money's going to come from. So this is your invitation to join that fun by supporting this kaupapa and helping to share something you love with even more people looking for soul-nourishing spiritual conversations. It's simple. You can choose between a one-off donation or become a regular supporter and help Sam and I keep making Sunday Sanctuary. To give now, head to our website, sundaysanctuary.nz. Kia ora, and thank you.
Maybe I can find my treasure. There's too much for me to do. Maybe I can find my treasure. Maybe my treasure rests in you.
Sunday Sanctuary with Petra Bagust.
E ngā manu, e ngā reo, mai e ngā hau e whā. Ta tū mai nei ki te manga o tēnei rākau whakareru hau. Tau mai nei ki tēnei kaupapa. E pāpaho atu nei ki a koutou a rā ko Sunday Sanctuary. Ko Petra Bagust tēnei. E rere ana ngā mihi ki a koutou katoa. To everyone from each corner of this country, come, rest on the branch of this sheltered tree. You are welcome to this project, this space, Sunday Sanctuary. I'm Petra Bagust, and I acknowledge you all. Now, Judginess. If there was ever an episode that perhaps no one is qualified to make, it might be this one, in so much as I suspect everybody's just a little bit judgy. Now, when I say judginess, I am referring to our tendency, our complete quickness to judge others unduly, like to go, oh gosh, you know, a kind of well, it's like writing somebody off. It's a bit like condemning them, but you might just be condemning their clothing taste or you might just be condemning their fashion choices or their food choices or their anything really. And judginess is a personality trait that I guess heaps of us see in ourselves and wish we didn't default to quite so often. Judginess is something that I have noticed in myself recently and really do wish I didn't default to quite so often. Like, it's become apparent to me and now I see it. I just don't like it. Having said that, I think it's worth noting that there is a decent difference to be highlighted here. To make an assessment about a situation or person is often necessary. What we're exploring in this episode is perhaps a little more nuanced idea of what is good judgment and what is downright judgmental. Later in the episode, you're going to hear a conversation I had with Dr. Graham Reading. He's the Douglas Goodfellow Lecturer in Chaplaincy Studies at the University of Otago. He's also my former lecturer when I studied to become a chaplain for the media. Also in the mix, a scene from the hit TV show Ted Lasso, some classic waiata, and a reflection on how judgment relates to the ritual of communion. First up, Abigail Dougherty. She was a visual journalist in Stuff's newsroom for 8 years. Last year, she branched out into the freelancing world, and if you have a moment, check out Abigail Dougherty's imagery. It is excellent. Here's Abigail. Kia ora and welcome back to the studio because we recorded this interview yesterday and the memory card failed, and so unjudgmentally you have returned to have the conversation again.
Yes, I have. Thank you.
No, thank you. So for at least the better part of a decade, at least 8 years, you've been in one of New Zealand's hotspot newsrooms. Covering everything. Disasters, triumphs, politics, people, business.
Mm-hmm. Lifestyle, art.
Everything. Okay, so for people who don't understand what being a photojournalist is, what in essence do you do? What do you go out and do?
So as people would think as a normal journalists, they're a written journalist, so they go out and tell stories with the written word. Photojournalists, we do it with imagery, with photos, with video and storytelling that way. So what that would look like is going to a subject's house and taking a photo of them. But it's good to know a little bit about them first so that you can portray them in a way that tells a story in one image. And in terms of video, it's similar. So you get a quick brief and then you go and sit down and have an interview. And
So you, in essence, are interviewing the subjects.
Yeah.
You're a journalist in that sense.
In a way, yeah.
Making a video story rather than writing it down.
Yeah, and we cut it up and edit it as well.
Okay. So is there, what part does judgment play? Like if you're going to a subject's house and they've been accused of doing something bad.
Yes.
How do you do that? And like what's your orientation to that?
It's a great question. I think, so when you're driving there, that's always your thinking space. Well, for me, it's my thinking space. And so you're like preparing. You're kind of prejudging almost in a way, like what to expect from the little information you've been given and how to approach this particular person. But in order to be welcomed at the door, you actually do have to put away all those preconceived notions and actually have to come in with a curious mind and curious heart to learn and to listen because you don't have all the facts yet.
Interesting, because there is this expectation, I guess, of our journalists and the public would have their opinion about whether they're achieving that, that there's ideally a lack of bias, that you go in as objectively as possible and you find out. But that's a very cognitive approach, like innocent until proven guilty. That's the phrase, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what I hear you say is that not only are you cognitively going to find out the facts, but your orientation as a human being is towards being as curious or open or neutral as possible.
Yes, because we all have our own thoughts and opinions about certain things. And because it's the job, because you do have to work hard to ensure that you are neutral, to make sure that you're showing all sides, that all the facts have been put out on the table, you do have to work to put that away. So for me personally, I would. It's kind of like once I've stepped into the door, those things are now behind me. They're not with me in the room.
Okay, so in essence, your process is you're allowed to think all your own thoughts and have all your own opinions and judgments in the car on the way there, and then you pack them in the backpack or you put them behind you and you go in as clean slate as you can.
You have to, because otherwise it could influence the way you do the interview. Where you come with assumptions, and as my dad says, makes an ass out of you and me. And you're not fully telling a true story, a true whole story, coming in with assumptions and preconceived ideas. You have to ask and find out for yourself from the horse's mouth, as you would say.
And how has that worked out for you with people?
Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Because people are going to be judging you potentially.
Oh, 100%.
So they might have their walls up and be like, you're just coming here to find out, you're coming here to prove X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
Is there an example of somebody whose door you've knocked on and they've initially been like, well...
Oh, it's hard. Yeah, no, it's the hard ones. It's the awful ones, like when you have to do door knocks when people have passed away. And because it's such a story where people are looking for information, where do you think the information is going to come from? It has to come from the source. We have to give the opportunity for, loved ones to say yes or no that they want to tell their story. And so those ones are hard, like you knock on the door and someone's grieving and it can feel intrusive, like how dare you come to my house and how dare you peer into this hurt and this brokenness we haven't even, so you have to be ready for that rejection. But also by being like that, you have to come as a person and a human with compassion, ready to be rejected, but also giving the opportunity for someone to tell their story. So, and there has been moments where people have actually, yes, I'd love to tell my story. And it's very rare, but it does happen. But you really have to be a human. You can't just be, my editor told me I'd got to do it, so I've got to do it, and I want to try and get the string. So it's not everybody's approach, but for me, it's definitely having to come with compassion. Yeah.
Does this come to you naturally? Were you just a very unjudgy young woman? Glad you thought about it.
No.
What were you like as a young woman?
I was quite prideful and thought I knew everything in my early 20s.
Don't we all?
I know.
We know so much because we just know so little, so we think we know everything.
100%, yes. So I was just fully ignorant and thought, I pretty much would look down on people if they didn't meet my expectations and how they lived their lives. And I would think, and I thought that was love. And I thought that I cared for people because in that way I thought. But really I was just being super judgmental. It wasn't a true sense of judgment to a person. And I mean, she hadn't lived a life yet.
Okay, yeah. She's young. What was the result of that? What was the result of that judgmentalness?
I burned a lot of bridges. My friend group got smaller.
Because you were like, nope, I'm not going to hang out with you.
Yes.
Nope.
Yes,
Yeah,
I didn't. Relationship wasn't the end goal.
Oh, what was the end goal?
Me being right.
Oh gosh,
yeah, I know.
That's a hiding to nothing.
Yes,
I've tried it. I know. I'm speaking from experience, not from judgment. Yeah. My doctor once said to someone close to my heart, "You can be right or you can be happy." It's probably like you can be right or you can be in a relationship. It's probably better.
Yeah, and actually allowing those heart-to-heart conversations to be curious, to listen why they think or live the way that they do or whatever, rather than just throwing judgment at them, literally throwing judgment and causing separation, causing bridges to burn.
Do you think we're more or less judgy than we used to be? Like, because I'm struggling with my own judginess. That's kind of why we're making this episode. On the outside, I'm nice as pie. And on the inside, I'm like, wow. How about that for a thought? To flatten a soul. Not mine, but yours. I'm like, oh gosh, I'm not sure that these thoughts are of any use to me, really.
Yes.
And I'm like, where are they coming from? Like, what is the point? What do you reckon?
I think, well, from my perspective, I know I've lived a lot more. So that's definitely helped in the sense that and because of the job in journalism, like I've met so many people in so many different environments, gone through so many different things. So I've worn different shoes. I've been in their shoes, sat with them. I've also lived my own life. I've made my own mistakes. Like I've asked for grace and compassion and for people to hear me. And so I've had to walk through that so I know.
For people to hold their judgment.
To hold their judgment,
Okay.
yeah. So I hope that people aren't as judgmental to me. So I try and be less judgmental to others because I want that grace.
That makes sense
and
to
that
me.
I want to be heard. I want to be seen. So
Yeah.
I hope to be less judgmental.
Yeah.
That's the hope anyway.
Yeah. Is there someone you've sat down with who you've gone, oh, wow, like they have broken off any judgment? You might have been driving to the property with judgment in your head and you've sat with them and listened and gone, oh, that you don't have to talk about the person, but is there
I was actually just thinking about one last night. There was a man who was in jail for a real heinous crime. And he had recently been acquitted because all the facts weren't given to him. And so he was actually found innocent and having to go through this whole process of life outside of prison. Like, I don't know about you, but it's hard for anybody to go, is he really innocent? Having those preconceived notions and judgments,
Did you interview?
We interviewed him.
What was that like?
Yeah, so it was interesting because you're just questioning in the car, like in your head, like, is he really, like, we're coming across, like, did he just scheme, like, the system? There's all these thoughts and things. And then you sit down with them and he's telling his story and then there's a human there now. It's not a name that's been blasted out into the media or through the courts or anything. It's a real human who's had a real life, who was hard done by. That changed me in terms of like it more challenged me. I think challenged my thinking and how I could quickly judge people based on false information.
Yeah, it's fascinating because this conversation could go in quite a lot of different directions.
Yeah.
You investigated the meaning of the word judgment. after he asked you?
Yes. So you know how you can use the term, don't be so judgy. That's more to do with judgmental, and that's being, preconceived notions. That's unhealthy judgment. That's based on false information, where the real true meaning of judgment is actually it's having real true facts. It's having conclusion and decision based on true information. And it's just like, okay, we've
taken this idea,
yes,
and we've turned it to our own benefit. I don't have to deal with you because I can just judge you.
Yes.
That's
judgmental.
Yeah.
You're being judgmental, which is the negative side, which is the judginess, the almost condemning type side, where you've split and disconnected and chosen to create separation.
Oh, interesting. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, I mean, if you have judginess or judgmentalness, you've literally, it's like you've decided to walk across the road from them, and you've decided, I never want to talk to this person or interact with that situation or whatever ever again.
Or I don't need to.
And that could be fine. But is it based on true information? Is it based on just past experiences or fear, or just previous experiences?
Preconceptions or prejudice or anything, right?
Exactly.
Stories you've been told.
Yeah.
Gossip. It's an interesting, it's so interesting, because my situation is that I was in a room full of what I would consider to be good citizens, and I looked around and was like, I'm a better good citizen than you guys. I'm like, what is this? Because if I was with people who I thought were really struggling and doing it tough and stuffing up, I wouldn't have that orientation. I wouldn't have the orientation of I'm better than you.
Right.
I'm not doing judginess. I'm like, wow.
Is that because of past experiences yourself, though?
Maybe. I think it's that our behaviours come out of the context of our lives and our ideology, and so much of that is inherited or experienced. And there's usually a reason for bad behaviour. Like there is always a reason for bad behaviour.
Yeah.
And some of it is generations deep, and so I just have this whole sense of immense compassion for that. I'm not saying that should keep going or harm should be perpetuated. Yeah. But I feel judgy about good people.
Not the bad people.
No. Funny, eh?
They know better.
They should be doing something. I do wonder if it's me. I think maybe I should be doing more. No. I was just like, where is this coming from?
So
What's judging other? Like these are people who are in my community, and I'm like,
But have we given them time and space to tell their story?
good point.
Because it could be that you just probably have more information from these guys rather than the ones that we are throwing judgment at.
Yeah, but
because maybe it's just the headlines we're seeing on Instagram, or just a quick interaction over coffee, rather than like actually last week my dad, passed away, or my dad's in the dementia unit right now, and it's just been a struggle just dealing with this type of stuff, and it's just like life.
Yeah.
Life just thrown at you, and it can alter everybody in every moment. There's always a reason, isn't there?
There is always a reason. Yeah, there's always a reason. And I think, do you think there's a thing that we think we're achieving with being judgmental? Like, what's the purpose of being judgy?
Do you think it's a protective
I do.
instinct?
Yeah.
I think because it creates distance. Being judgmental creates distance, and it's just saying, no, not right now. It's like I think it's fear-based. And fear is not true. It lies to us.
Yeah, fear is not a wise guide.
No,
as a
it's
friend of mine once
not.
said.
And I think, I don't know, but I know I have to catch myself. I need to constantly catch myself. Oh, why? Why am I getting defensive right now? Why am I thinking these thoughts of these people? Do I actually know what's going on? Just take a breath, Abby, calm down. Because, you can just get ragey.
You can.
It can get a bit rage baity and stuff. And
what does that do when you take a breath? Because I like the sound of that. You've noticed the thought. you're asking yourself a genuine question, what's going on?
Yeah.
And you're taking a deep breath, so you're pausing.
Yeah.
How does that make you feel in your body, brain, and
Oh, man. So it's the whole, like, literally exerting all the tension from the top of your head to the bottom of your feet. For me, it's personally to remove the tension in my neck, because I can, like, hold stress and thoughts a lot in my head and my neck. And so it's taking the breath and taking it off me and then actually going to the facts. Because when we are in those emotional, me personally, in those emotional moments, it's because there aren't real facts. My mind's ruminating on not actual facts.
So you're telling yourself a story that might be to protect you.
Yeah. It's probably a trigger for something.
Okay.
Yeah, probably a past experience or something.
And when you do breathe and when you do approach your own thoughts with curiosity, you actually release tension.
I calm down, it's amazing. But I definitely have to do the breathing before I get to that thought process.
Yeah, for sure. That makes sense, right?
Yeah.
And it keeps you alive.
Yeah, it
which
does.
is really useful.
Yes, yeah.
And so even this, like we've kind of investigated here how judgment lands, what you do to kind of orient yourself away from it.
Yeah.
Condemnation exists, and so for somebody like the mosque shooter, that there is condemnation of their actions, and we don't say their name.
No.
And that feels like appropriate, right? So we're not saying that there is no judgment or no condemnation of certain behaviours.
I think it's a healthy judgment.
Yeah.
It's a true judgment.
Okay, yeah.
Condemnation
that was
is a sentence. That's the meaning of the word, is a sentence.
Okay.
Yeah. And he is condemned in a way.
Yes.
But that is a true cutting off, and I think that's a healthy one, though. But that's because all the facts were laid out before us.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yes, very unfortunate. And when we turn back to the daily judgment, I mean, I just noticed that the being judgy doesn't ultimately make me feel great. Like, you're right, it doesn't make me feel connected to
It puts us on
anyone.
a weird pedestal too, though, doesn't it? It makes us feel a little bit good. It makes us feel like the queens or the kings. It's just like, I don't know.
But like, and for a nanosecond. Like, and then I'm like, ugh. And so it's ultimately like doesn't land well, I don't think.
No.
Has your faith informed your sense of being or desiring not to be judgy?
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting, though, because I grew up in a Christian home, great Christian home, and yet I was a super judgy queen in my 20s. So, I thought it wasn't being judgmental, but I was a judgmental queen. And life experiences and putting my feet in other people's shoes has helped me to have a bigger heart, bigger mind, and to learn to listen. And just knowing that Jesus sat with everybody. He listened. He didn't approve of sin, but he still listened to and came to them as human beings, as, people he loved. For me, it's definitely helped me to go, who am I to be better than them? And, I mean, if Jesus can sit with anybody, I can sit with anybody. I mean, there's a healthy level of, discernment in terms of protecting oneself. In terms of journalism, you sit with everybody and you need to be careful, but you still have to come to people on a human-to-human level. And we all want to be seen, we all want to be heard, and there's something beautiful when you do that. There is a real, true connection. And I think that's healing. And you see it in all the interactions in the Bible, that people are healed from those interactions just with Jesus. I mean, even the woman who was being, caught in adultery and circled upon and
by the religious
religious leaders and
they're testing. They don't care about her at all. They're just testing Jesus and saying, our rules, our guide for life says she has to die.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay.
Yeah, you have sin, cast the first
so
stone.
whoever hasn't done anything wrong in their lives, you start.
Yeah, and they all start dwindling away. And then he just says to her, sin no more, and walks away. And that's it. He treated her like a human. He had compassion. And it definitely informs me. It's helped me with my job. Because, I mean, I was a Christian girl in my 20s who didn't have much time for certain people. Do you know what I mean? It's really opened my mind up to be more curious and to sit and listen. It's made my world a lot bigger because I've done that.
Yeah.
It's a healthy thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think.
And I can see that the dissolution or the casting off of being judgmental has made you as a person much more open but also more robust.
Yeah.
And it hasn't negated the fact that you can be safe going into environment. You can care for yourself and be safe and well. And you might have to process things that you hear. You might have to, make sure you are psychologically safe as well.
Yes.
But your world is much bigger for orienting away from judgment. Or judginess.
Judginess, I think.
Judginess,
I think judginess is the one we go.
Judginess is a good word.
Because there's a healthy
What are you
sense
gonna
of
say?
judgment, and then there's the negative sense of judgment, which is judgmental, and judginess, I guess, and the condemnation type spirit.
Okay. So you think I'm on track then, trying to get rid of this feeling, this impulse. Or maybe I can't ever get rid of it. Maybe I just go, that's interesting.
I still have my judgments. If someone eats a burger with a knife and fork, mate, I'm throwing judgments. Get your fingers out there, grab a napkin, come on, man.
I judged my husband yesterday for buying flavoured maple syrup.
Wait, what?
Sugar-free.
Okay, no, that's true. I'm casting judgment.
I asked him about it and he gave me his reason. And then I had all the facts and I was like, okay, I understand what you were doing. Which I'll tell you later. Okay, reflecting on the conversation I had with Abigail, I am at an advantage in reflecting on the conversation I had with Abigail because I had 2 conversations with her, one of which you got to hear and one of which just Sam and I got to hear. And I really, really enjoyed our kōrero in so much as there was a felt sense of growth in the being and body of Abigail. Our conversation continued as she left the building and downstairs standing outside, and that sense of moving from the narrow confines, the small tightness of condemnation, the safe, higher, neater, untouchable place of condemnation, in comparison to the move, the slow, gradual unfolding, opening, expanding, embracing move of curiosity. And actually in her person, Abigail embodies that. So the whole process was a joy. Like, it was fun to have her back and talk again and explore again how we can be in and share spaces with people who we might be completely unaligned to and see them as a human and adopt a position of curiosity. It's powerful. I really loved it. If you loved it too, then share this episode with a friend. You can leave us a review on your podcast player of choice. That essentially helps other people find Sunday Sanctuary. And if you want to hang out with us on Instagram, we are at Sunday Sanctuary NZ. See you there.
Sunday Sanctuary with Petra Bagust.
That was a little bit of the classic Carly Simon Waiata, You're So Vain, which I once recorded with my Ice TV colleagues, and we thought about playing it to you, but I didn't want to be judged by my very average singing. So we just left it to Carly. She's the pro. It's time now for Community Live, and we went to our Instagram community at Sunday Sanctuary NZ and asked you 2 questions. What triggers judginess in you, and how do you move past your judginess? And it's fair to say that as I read some of the answers about what triggers our judginess, I was like, oh dear. I was feeling a tad judgy about it, but this is the point, right? Maybe when we engage in really judgmental thinking, we in effect enter this cycle of just judging. It's like a self-fulfilling spiral that goes nowhere. So I guess I challenge you, my wero for you is, as you hear what triggers judginess in other people, you hold your condemnation. This is what you said. Rudeness, unfair treatment, injustice. Another person said, what triggers judginess in me is my own unmet needs. I think that's pretty insightful. Another, poor grammar. Sorry, I'm trying to stop it, but I always clock it when I hear it. Another person said toxic positivity. Some people are triggered into judginess when people are Trump supporters, especially Christians. Another said facial and neck tattoos. People who complain about everything and anything but take no personal accountability. Another said bad behaviour, swearing, uncleanliness, drug addicts. They also said, I try hard not to be too judgy though. Another said, my judginess is probably an element of jealousy, really. It's probably part of tall poppy syndrome. And lastly, my judginess is triggered by comparison. So the second question was, how do you move past your judginess? Like, can you? Do you even want to? And you said, I try to think about what's causing the behaviour, because the root cause is often trauma or pain. Another person said, I'm growing to understand that for some, judginess is how they're wired, and for others, it's self-protective. Another person said it's hard to move past judginess, but I remind myself everyone is on their own journey of discovery. Another person said by creating good boundaries. Also, realising there's reasons and a story behind that Jesus loves those people and died for them. And then I tell myself off, which sounds like you're being self-judging. Another person said, I tell myself, stop being a don't be so rude. And I do relate, because I think sometimes when we hear these judgmental thoughts inside of us, we are like, wow, we are being the here. We are being the person who is behaving badly when we're condemning somebody else for what we perceive as their bad behaviour. So it's like a very fruitless cycle. And then the last person said, I try to move past my judginess using God's grace, giving my judginess to him and trusting God to change my posture. So much to think about. And I wonder if some of those thoughts can be summed up in this scene in the hit TV program Ted Lasso. This is where nice guy soccer coach Ted Lasso is playing a competitive game of darts against businessman and former owner of the soccer club AFC Richmond, Rupert. Rupert is pretty darn sure he has this wrapped up. He is definitely going to win.
Hey! Better manners when I'm holding the dart. Please, May, what do I need to win?
2 triple 20s and a bullseye.
Good luck. You know, Rupert, guys have underestimated me my entire life. And for years, I never understood why. It used to really bother me. But then one day, I was driving my little boy to school, and I saw this quote by Walt Whitman. It was painted on the wall there. It said, be curious, not judgmental. I like that. So I get back in my car, and I'm driving to work, and all of a sudden, it hits me. All them fellas that used to belittle me, not a single one of them were curious. You know, they thought they had everything all figured out, and so they judged everything, and they judged everyone. And I realized that they're underestimating me. Who I was had nothing to do with it. Because if they were curious, they would ask questions. You know? Questions like, have you played a lot of darts, Ted? Which I would have answered, yes, sir. Every Sunday afternoon at a sports bar with my father from age 10 till I was 16 when he passed away. Barbecue sauce.
Now it's time to come to the Lord's Supper, or communion. Unfortunately, when I'm at my worst in passing judgment on others, it's often too late when I realise I have done it. It's only after I do something similar, or fall short myself, that I realise I'm actually no better. Then comes the shame from knowing I have judged others for the same. Judginess always comes when I think I'm doing alright, and that I'm better than someone else in those moments. I confess I often pride myself on having grace, on being able to try and understand someone else's motives and possible reasons for living a certain way or taking certain actions. Unfortunately, I admit that's far too often only the case until it's costly to me, or I'm the one on the receiving end of that behaviour. Many times that grace that I try to keep front of mind seems to fly out the window and I'm saddling up on my high horse. I think it's in this space where communion can actually do something really beautiful for us. When taking the wine and bread, we remember Jesus' sacrifice for us. He didn't go to the cross lightly to redeem largely okay people. He sacrificed himself to redeem the most broken parts of all of us. I often reflect on this when partaking in communion, that God made himself human and seeks a relationship with me despite knowing all about the worst parts of myself as well as the best. The more often I take part in communion, the more I'm aware of my own shortcomings, which offers me the chance to give real grace to others. I feel there's perhaps no better antidote to condemning others than remembering God's sacrifice and our own flaws. As we consider this idea, let's try remembering Jesus' sacrifice and thinking of his great love. In turn, may we also increase our understanding for others.
Thanks to Azriel for his reflection on communion in relationship to judginess. Our waiata today is Changes by David Bowie, after which we'll talk to Dr. Graham Reading from the University of Otago.
Waiting for, and my time was running wild, a million dead-end streets, and every time I thought I got it made, it seemed the taste was not so sweet. So I turned myself to face me, but I've never caught a glimpse of how the others must see the faker. I'm much too fast to take that test. Changes. Turn and face the strain. Changes. Don't wanna be a richer man. Changes. Turn and face the strain. Changes. It's gonna have to be a different man. Time may change me, but I can't trace time. Size, but never leave the stream of warm and permanent sand. So the days float through my eyes, but still the days seem the same. And these children that you spit on as they try to change their worlds are immune to your consultations. They're quite aware of what they're going through. Changes. Turn and face the strain. Changes. Don't tell them to grow up out of it. Changes. Turn and face the strain. Changes. Where's the shame you've left us up to our next event? Time may change me, but you can't twist time. Strange fascination, fascinating me. Our changes are taking
Tēnā koe, Dr. Graham Redding, University Lecturer in Chaplaincy Studies at the University of Otago, and one of my former lecturers. Welcome.
Kia ora, you were one of my star students.
I remember coming to you one time and being like, I'm really busy, there's a lot going on. Maybe I could dial this assignment down, and that's what I was hoping for, like you to say, take it easy, you have an extension. You were like, you could do this and this and this and this. And I was like,
Let me assure you, Petra, I never judged you.
Touche. Thank you for not judging me. I'm not sure I can say the same in return. No. And I was like, fine, I'll do it all. Lots of people don't even know what chaplaincy is, and I work as a media chaplain, and you train chaplains for hospitals, for schools, for universities, for anywhere and everywhere, right? So I remember we talked about it as a ministry of presence. It feels like a very unjudgy place that you meet people where they're at, you sit with them. In investigating this topic of being judgy, it feels like a pretty much daily human activity, like, oh, that's what they're wearing, or oh, that's their life decision, or oh, they smell. There's all these minor little judginess to maxi judginess of, oh my goodness, I can't believe they think that, they behave like that, they say that, that person is terrible, this person is awful, their thoughts are diabolical. There's the scale. What's your engagement, perhaps, I don't know, do you want to start personally or professionally, on the concept of judginess?
Well, I think we can't avoid judging, but the question is one of context. What's the context in which the situation arises that we are judging or forming an opinion on? That's inevitable when we see behaviour that we think is outlandish or simply wrong. We're making a judgment call. But I think that it's very important to draw a distinction between the action that we might be evaluating and the person who's conducting themselves in a particular way. That when we condemn the person as a result of their actions, I think we've taken it too far. So chaplaincy, in a way, withholds premature judgment to simply hold people in whatever space they're in, to allow their own story to emerge and help them reflect on their own situation.
Okay, so context is key, and you're suggesting judgment of behaviour can be appropriate, but withholding judgment of people is beneficial or ideal.
Yeah, and even in our judging of behaviour, recognising often that our initial reactions are partial and incomplete. For example, there might be significant cultural differences that we're unaware of. There might be particular circumstances that we're unaware of. One of the classic examples that was given me in my theological training was we would say theft is wrong. But what if that person is stealing to survive and simply put bread on the table? Does that colour our attitude towards the action because there might be extenuating circumstances? So we're always looking at the context of something, and our preliminary judgments might need to be revised as we gain more information and understanding.
How would we adopt a posture of, there might be something I don't know here, in every circumstance? That's a real challenge.
It is a real challenge, but that's the challenge that I think leads to growth, where if we learn to hold things lightly, and we might find that some of our earlier judgments are reinforced over time, but equally being open to revising them and saying, well, maybe it was my lack of understanding at the time. So we need to be very careful in our initial responses that we don't, how shall I put it, draw too hard a line, lest we do a lot of damage in the process.
What sort of damage?
Well, it can show a basic failure to understand what somebody might be going through and what dynamics might be feeding into their situation. So our judgment can be very hastily conceived that causes us to regret it later, and meanwhile it causes a lot of hurt to the person being judged.
Yeah. Do you think that we suffer when we're judging other people? Like, say if I'm judging somebody who's walking past me in the street, they don't know my judgment. What is there any on this sort of ethereal, spiritual level, is there anything that's taking place? Like, is there any impact of that thinking, do you reckon, for me or the other person?
Yeah, there is. I mean, we're forming those surface judgments all the time on appearance. But the old adage, don't judge a book by its cover, I think rings true in the realm of judgment. If we're judging always simply on what appears on the surface, then we end up with very surface judgments and conclusions being drawn. We can't avoid it, of course. I mean, we do form opinions based on experience, and sometimes that experience is validated, sometimes it's not. But the key thing is not to allow that initial judgment to become set in concrete in a way that creates problems for both the person being judged and ourselves.
Yeah, I really enjoyed also, to add to that, what the journalist we talked to earlier in the episode said, where she was saying a judgment will create a divide. It creates separation from me and the object of my judgment. And there's really, what do you do with a divide? It's just like it's an othering, it's a separating, it's a disconnecting from. I don't perceive that that's going to add anything potentially.
No. And I think we do need to distinguish between the action and the moral agent. One of the things that struck me when I look at aspects of history is some of the key advocates for social reform, prison reform, restorative justice, are people who argue very clearly that a person's deeds or misdeeds need not totally define them, and that no one is beyond rehabilitation, beyond restoration. So any judgment that we make must not be absolute in itself, but must be geared towards the possibility of reconciliation and rehabilitation.
Are you a naturally judgy person, Graham?
Yes.
How does judgment show up in your life? Like, where are you perhaps evoked to judgment where you would prefer not to be?
I tend to be very judgy of large-scale things. So when I see wars and famines and that kind of thing, I am very judgmental because I just see so much suffering. But for everyday kind of things, I think one of the riches of living in a diverse, multicultural society is that within that diversity, there's a lot that we are learning and that we don't fully understand. And for those kinds of situations, I tend to be less judgy and thinking, what can I learn here before I rush to a conclusion about anything.
So as a Pākehā European mature human man, how, like, that posture, has that been hard won, or are you enjoying that? Or that doesn't seem to be necessarily the natural progression of a person. What's led you to adopt a non-judgmental?
Well, I guess it's the people that you have the privilege and sometimes the difficulty of interacting with in the course of your life. And when I was doing my theological studies in the 1980s and 90s, the feminist movement was very strong then. And for me at the time, that was a real eye-opener, even approaching things like sacred texts, Bible stories. When you read them through a feminist lens, all kinds of things bubble to the surface and make you realise, gosh, there's a patriarchy here, there's a very male-dominated viewpoint that's being sanctified and held up as the only right way. So for me, that was a very formative experience to say, we need to listen and learn. And similarly, cross-culturally, the privilege of going on a marae and being part of something initially that felt so alien to me, but opened my eyes to a completely different communal worldview that my individualistic Western mindset had not privileged me with up until that point. So it's about what experiences you learn from that broaden your horizons and shape you.
I love hearing that, because that's exactly the trajectory that Abigail Dougherty, the journalist, was talking about, that when she had a youthful, slightly self-righteous, judgmental framework that she lived out of, her world was smaller than when she adopted a posture of curiosity, openness and connection, and there was room for having a boundary around herself of safety and individual ideas. But what you're describing shows the ability to engage with novelty, mystery, tension, nuance, confusion, understanding, all of the things, right? And I think even, like you say, curiosity isn't always answered. There's not always an answer at the end of the question, which requires a posture of openness. It doesn't help me with my judginess right now. I'm gonna have to say that we'll get back to that. Can I talk? Let's put it on the shoulders of a big guy. My perception is that the biblical texts, divided as they are into the first half, the Old Testament, and the second half, the New Testament, not exactly half, I acknowledge that. There's
two parts.
2 parts. It's divided into 2 parts, the New Testament and the Old Testament, part 1 and part 2. That in the world at large, and perhaps even within faith-based spaces, there's a perception that the God of the Old Testament is very judgy or judgmental, and the focus and the God represented through Jesus in the New Testament is very loving and forgiving. Can you talk about how that perception might have happened, or give us some insight into your thoughts about that?
Well, it's understandable why that perception is there. There are some stories, particularly in the Old Testament, because the Old Testament is the larger part. There's lots more stories that narrates the history of ancient Israel. And some of the events that are portrayed there are of a God who punishes people for their sin. So it's easy to get that impression that there's the judging God. But equally within those Old Testament scriptures are profound stories of mercy, the God who refrains from punishing, who is eternally patient, waiting for the people of ancient Israel and those who have sinned to turn around. So although the stories seem to skew mainly in one direction, it is a lot more nuanced than that. Similarly in the New Testament, where we have this God of love, so-called, Jesus could be quite judging of others. He was judging of the Pharisees and the scribes, those who judged others with their own sense of righteousness. He could be very scathing of. He overturned the table, the money-changing tables in the temple. So it wasn't just a lovely, cozy Jesus that we see. It was a prophet. But the key thing is, I think the turning point between the Old and the New Testaments is the person of Jesus himself. And for the New Testament authors, God's judgment is seen through the lens of the cross at Calvary. My God, why have you forsaken me? The lens of unconditional love. So it's love that judges us, not some punitive God, because the whole notion of Jesus dying on the cross is that we do not need to suffer that. He has suffered it in our place and on our behalf. So there's a whole theology there, more than we can go into today. But I think the stereotypes need to be broken down a little bit and explored more fully.
Yeah, I heard somebody say, that's an interesting point you make. I heard somebody say that if you think about the narratives that are being recorded to encapsulate the history of the nation of Israel, they are a bit like a headline article. They are full of hyperbole and metaphor. And somebody said, there's one text that says, and God wiped out this entire people. A couple of chapters later, it said, and then the people did this and this and this. And it was like, so those people didn't all get wiped out. But in essence, they were saying it's a bit like the All Blacks smashed and annihilated this team. But actually that team got beaten and then they went on to play their next game against the next group. Now, I think some of the judgment was probably pretty real and people died, but it's the sense of we're living in a historical context. Those stories are recording a historical context that we don't perhaps always have access to.
And they're recording historical context through a particular lens, which is the experience of the people of ancient Israel. And even within the Old Testament, there is a developing and evolving understanding. If you look at some of the earlier passages of the Old Testament, where the judgment of God is much more to the fore, and then you compare that with some of the later writings that you see in the prophet Isaiah and so on, where God's compassion burns hotly and God withholds the punishment and promises that the Messiah figure will come so that the people may live. There is this declaration of life and promise and so on. So I think we need to look at those scriptures with a lens of development to say they're not all the same. There was a growing understanding in the way that the canon of Scripture came together.
And I guess like two things come to mind. One, prophets are tetchy creatures, aren't they? They're there's the sand in your shoe. They're like the people who are just kind of like needling. And the other thing that came to mind was how those judgy stories are the equivalent of clickbait. They're the headline, tension-grabbing things. The stories of compassion, they don't generally end up on the front page of the newspaper or at the top of the bulletin. Like that, those compassion, love, mercy, forgiveness stories aren't the clickbaity stories.
Yeah, a useful contrast for me is to compare John the Baptist with Jesus.
Right.
John the Baptist, baptism of repentance, declaring people to be a brood of vipers and such like, full of judgment. But then Jesus submitted to that in his own baptism by John in the River Jordan and refrained from describing people in those terms. So he was taking John's perception, submitting to it, but in submitting to it, actually reworked it and reinvented it. And we see that in the ministry of Jesus, where he mixed with sinners and outcasts and upheld women and children, those that traditional society of his time would often put at the bottom of the heap.
Would judge.
Correct, judge accordingly. And Jesus refused to buy into those judgments. He called them children of God. And when you look at the Beatitudes, blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. There is a sense in which he stoops to where the lowest of the low are, those who have been judged, and elevates them and restores them. The parable of the prodigal son is a brilliant example. You've got the righteous older brother, but then you've got the wasteful younger son. But who does the father welcome home with unconditional grace? It's the younger one. And it's the older brother's attitudes that actually end up judging himself.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I guess I'm hearing you say there's no difference between the actual character of the God of the Old and New Testament.
The character is the same, and it's summed up in John, God is love. And yes, that includes a judgment, but if we understand it through the person of Jesus, it's a judgment of love in which he takes upon himself that which we cannot bear so that we might be freed from that judgment.
You really did pay attention at theological school, didn't you?
So they tell me.
I'm hearing you say that there's place for condemnation and judgment, right judgment. Often withholding judgment allows us to discover more, to make a better judgment call or a more accurate or more appropriate. Let's not be wedded to our judgments because it may end up that they are incorrect or need more information to be accurate or fair. What can I do about my judginess? My judginess comes not when I'm in the company of people who, on the surface of it have done terrible things or are behaving in ways that are unsavoury. It comes in the presence of what I perceive to be good people. Maybe even that idea of good and bad person is expired thinking.
Correct.
Yeah. And
we're a mixture. And you and I have both attended funeral services, perhaps where the deceased is being talked about. And either they're being eulogised to the ceiling and you think, hang on, there are other aspects of this person there's a lack of honesty here. But equally, there might be some people who very little is able to be said about because no one can think of anything particularly good. But they were not necessarily a bad person. There might have been any number of circumstances that they were mental health related issues, for example. They might have impacted severely. They might have been abused as children and they were simply playing out that life of having been abused. So we just don't know.
What's your personal antidote if you feel a judgy thought rising? What is it that you do?
To pause. And to realise that this may not be the total story, that my initial impression, my initial judgment might be premature and it should not eliminate, I think that's a wonderful word you use, curiosity. Curiosity should never be sacrificed on the altar of judgment.
Dr. Graham Redding, pleasure to talk to you and lovely to see you again.
Likewise with you, Petra.
Making this episode of Sunday Sanctuary, the conversations around judginess have been so much fun because it seems to be a relatively universal human behaviour. So if we are not attempting to eradicate or halt all thoughts of judgment, because it turns out making good judgment calls or coming to a healthy judgment is a practice that's needed in our humanity and in our world. But to avoid condemnation, writing people off, cancel culture, I think that between those two boundaries is a world of discovery. And my favourite thing in hearing what Graham had to say was his, I guess, realisation of other worldviews. In his studies, in his work, he's intersected with ideology and cultures and I guess lenses, ways of seeing the world that have fully expanded his expression and experience of the world. And if that's what curiosity does, and embracing perhaps the discomfort of holding judgment, then that's a powerful thing to pursue. So for me, in trying to figure out, in making this episode, why am I judgy? That question has quietened, and perhaps the more powerful idea has emerged that when I notice judgment, if I copy Abigail and take a deep breath and sort of posture myself towards curiosity and embrace, healthy openness, that I'm going to gain so much more. So yeah, it's been a bit of a joy to make this episode. I'm not turning something off in so much as I may in fact be turning something on, a posture towards, curiosity, love, openness, listening, seeing. It's very cool. So I'm going to leave you with a liturgy for fleeting irritation. It's written by Douglas McKelvey, and it's from the book Every Moment Holy, Volume 1. I bring to you, Lord, my momentary irritation, that you might reveal the buried seed of it, not in the words or actions of another person, but in the withered, hypocritical expectations of my own small heart. Uproot from this impoverished soil all arrogance and insecurity that would prompt me to dismiss or disdain others, judging them with a less generous measure than I reckon when judging myself. Prune away the tangled growth of my own unjustified irritations, Jesus, and graft to my heart instead your humility, your compassion, your patience, your kindness, that I might bear good fruit in keeping with your grace. Amen.